so glad you could stay for Talking Business. Now, let's look at crop production and food prices. We'll look at the global implication of the Russia-Ukraine crisis first before we come home. But let me introduce my guest to you. I have the person of Dr. Osaze Iyua in the studio. Who's an economist. Welcome, Dr. Osaze.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to host you again on the show.
Thanks very much.
All right, now before we get into that, during Business Roundup, the story that the federal government has banned any direct purchase of farm produce involving indigenous farmers and foreign nationals came up, and I'm sure Dr. Osaze wants to react to that. Now, this new policy banning direct purchase of farm produce by foreign nationals from indigenous farmers, introducing local agents to be like a middleman. How do you see that?
Yeah, it's okay. I think the whole essence is to avoid exploitation by these foreign nationals, because most times they come with the power of the foreign exchange that they have, and they pay very ridiculously low prices to these farmers, and most of these farmers are hungry. They don't have this purchasing, this negotiation power. So most times they come and they just get a free ride, buy these crops very cheap from the farm gates, as the minister used the word, because most of these local farmers, they don't have preservative equipment that they could use to store their goods, so they are eager to sell it quickly
before they begin to perish.
Exactly. You put pineapples and so on, most of them are already ripe, and the person who is buying it from you is telling you that, by tomorrow it will spoil. So most times I think the essence is to get these, but I don't know who these, I think these agents are going to be registered.
Yes.
So I would expect that these local agents would have higher capacity to be able to rectify the issues that the farmers at the farm gates were lacking. So that you are not bamboozling them, not even with the prices, but with the fact that these goods will soon spoil or will soon get rotten. So I think I would have expected that these agents, or rather I expect that these agents would have a high capacity, either capital or preservative equipment, so that they can get these crops from the farmers, store it, then sell it at a very good price, so that they are not rushed, they are not stampeded to sell at cheap prices. So when they store it, it doesn't have to even be in the particular season when it's bought. Most times, probably the next season, probably dry season, when the cost has appreciated. So they sell this to the foreign. I think it's a good idea. It all depends on the mechanism, the plans around which it's going. It's not just, sometimes we have a problem of just bringing lofty ideas without having a proper arrangement on how it should go. So I would expect that these agents should have the high capacity, should be very well technologically and financially established people, so that they act as middlemen between the farmers, that the farmers get good value for their crops, then the agents also get something. So the national.
I was coming to the part of the agent getting something, because it didn't specify what's in it for the agent. Now, middlemen with the usual practice, of course, the middleman wants to gain. So for a local agent coming to be the negotiator between the farmer and the foreigners or the nationals, as the case may be. Now, do you see a situation where at the end of the day, it's like we're back to the same thing we're trying to avoid, where the farmer is shortchanged because of maybe the percentage that goes to the local agents? Yeah,
that's a very strong worry. And while I was talking, I remember there's a point also that we might be creating these bottlenecks, and at the end of the day, we might be going back to a situation where, because what we are trying to do now is to market ourselves to the world, to ensure that our goods are attractive, because we have problems with oil right now. So I think the non-oil sector is the leading driver to GDP. So agriculture sector is the largest of the non-oil sector. So these bottlenecks might end up discouraging the foreign exporters or importers. At the end of the day, if we are going through, you have to go through agents, and these agents might, as you said, go back to what we are trying to avoid, buy at cheap prices, and now make all the profits for something, the hard work that they did not necessarily put in, and still give the farmer stipends. So that's why I say it has to be proper arrangement.
Okay.
Probably this agent should be government. I would have expected that government empower statals, ministries.
Ministry of Agri,
exactly, yeah, should do it. Like yes, something like how we had marketing boards. So you have either you give it to contractors or staff themselves, so that they act as so that it's just very small. If there will be anything, just small.
If it's full
percentage,
scale private sector run.
I think it will be damaging. It will be damaging because they will now end up being the exploitative agents and will now discourage. You know, foreigners don't like too much trouble because at the end of the day, if the agent fee is there, the farmer's fee is there, and they can get it at a cheaper price from Ghana or Angola, then they will just move. Exactly, they will just move to other markets. So I think government should be the driver of these agents that we talk about, so that it's just small percentage, 1%, what you call administrative charge, that should just be taken, so that the farmers get just reward for their. But if you leave it for the private thing, they will exploit those farmers. That's my thought.
Okay, and now let's get into today's issue. Although what we're talking about is still in the agricultural sector, but let's look at crop production. Now, data revealed that NADRA improved marginally in the production of key food in 2021. Now, rice production rose from 4.89 million metric tons in 2022 to 5 million metric tons in 2021. Maize also improved. Now, I'll give you the details of maize first, but let's look at food production in Nigeria. In spite of all this marginal increase that Nigeria got in the year 2021, this is the third month in the year 2022, so we're still in the first quarter of the year 2022. No data available yet by the NBS as to how much we've done in terms of agricultural production. But so far, having gained some in 2021, judging from 2020, there seems to still be a huge deficit in terms of food outputs in Nigeria, in spite of government intervention, other different schemes, Agobera scheme and some others, and even CBN intervention. What do you think was still lacking that has made us not to have significant progress as far as food security is concerned?
Yeah, from the statistics you wrote out, I think that the increases have been very marginal, so it's still not.
Yes, for rice 4.89 and then 5 million.
Exactly. So that's just about 1.1 or so. So I think the increases have still not been significant. And you know, we complained about low rainfall last season. Okay. So I think it's part of it. Then yeah, the Anchor Borers program has been on, but we've also had theories, conspiracy theories about it not getting to the final target farmers, but in any case, it's still at the stage of contention. But the nut, the nuts represents our biggest source of agriculture. Okay. So it's still a place where the unrest is the insurgency, the headers crisis is still there. So I haven't seen a lot. Even the last monetary policy meeting, I know the CBN governor made reference to it, admitted to the fact that we have not done so well in agriculture. But I believe that with this rainy season coming, so probably by the second quarter, we will be able to have significant improvement in production. But last year, I know there was reports of low shortfall in rainfalls, and the incessant unrest in the north still I am added to it. So I think it means that we should still put in the hard work. Mechanized farming should still be the way to go, because most of our farming is still at the basic level and the primary level, using manual equipment to farm, and poor seedlings. It has always been the complaint, poor seedlings. Then I think CBN should also focus beyond just giving cash handouts, should focus on more on right seedlings and the right fertilizers. Okay,
like instead of giving cash to the farmer to go purchase these things, they may be in better position to have access to quality seedlings and fertilizer, get it for them.
Working with some consultants or directly, I think that would be better, because if you are giving the farmers money, they are still going back to their local practices which they are used to. And low yield is the problem of Africa, specifically in Nigeria. That's the problem that we've had, low yield. So you can plant large hectares, and because the yield is low, you still will just be going in circles.
Why do we have low yield? Could that be as a result of us not using much of fertilizers?
Yeah, much of fertilizer, that's it, but the low yield seedlings.
Okay.
Because there have been improvement, there have been technological improvement in modified seedling, crossbreeding and so on. So I think that's where we still have a problem. There's this biotech, it's an organization of government that I don't think they are still doing enough. So I think most of these government parastatals are in charge of discovering improved seedlings should work in collaboration with the CBN. So that CBN is probably funding those organizations to improve on their outputs. Then they transfer whatever improvements they've gotten to the farmers beyond just cash. Because the farmers could also divert this cash to either marry more wives or buy more.
So it's actually supplying them what they need and not just cash.
Not just cash, exactly.
Okay, so we may have actually not been
looking
at...
we are not throwing money at the problem.
At our approach to some of these things. Exactly. All right, now let's look at some of the key food that Nigeria had a marginal increase in terms of production. For maize, maize increased from 10 million metric tons in 2020 to 11.6 million metric tons in 2021. Wheat production, which is a key raw material for bread production. Now, bread has now become, or has always been, a staple for Nigeria. As much as you talk about rice, you talk about bread for Nigeria. Okay, now wheat production rose to 99 million metric tons in 2021, up from 55 million metric tons in 2020. Now that's recorded 80% increase. Now I could give you that of other food, but this key food, we talk about rice, talk about maize, we talk about wheat. Now if wheat could have as high as 80% increase, is it that we're channeling the energy, the effort to certain products and neglecting some others?
Yeah, I think it's evenly spread. It's just that probably that's the identified comparative advantage that they think that the managers of our economy or the CBN feels that that's where our comparative advantage is. But like corn you talked about, it's I read it too that there has been a significant increase, but it's still not able to meet domestic and demand. So I think there was a focus on meeting exports, channeling it more to exports than, because you remember last year fowl feed. Animal feed, especially poultry, it increased, and that was the reason, because corn, which is a major component of the production, was not available in the local market. So we had to now fall back to exporting. In fact, they banned the import of corn. So that's what even necessitated it. And we were increasing, supposedly, or the way what we're told was that we're increasing our exports, but we're also lacking in corn. Wheat, the report seems contradictory, because in 2021 we imported 898 billion worth of wheat into the country.
Yes, we still import, yes. Actually, Nigeria imported 6 million metric tons of wheat in 2021. Yes, but that was a decline from what we imported in 2020, which was we had an 8.9% decrease. We actually imported 6.6 million metric tons of wheat in 2020, and then imported just 6 million in 2021. Now, this issue we usually have, exporting what you don't have sufficient, what don't have sufficiently as to satisfy the local demand. Why do we have this? You're exporting maize, but you don't have enough to meet the local demand. Where do you think the problem is?
Yeah, I think the problem is peculiar to the economy that we are. There's a problem with forex. I think that's the whole debacle. Our cash cow, our major source of forex before was oil, but oil has been up and down. But even when it has increased, our subsidy payment has not allowed us to feel the benefit from it. So we are trying to. There's a conscious effort to diversify from oil sources to non-oil sources for foreign exchange. So I think that's where the managers of the economy are a little bit confused because we have need for forex because we are an imported economy. So I think they now see that, okay, are we between meeting domestic demand or earning as much forex as possible, because it's the forex we use in servicing. There's an increase in service of debt now. Our debt servicing has increased to about 3 to 4 trillion. So I think they are in a fix now. Do we meet domestic demand or do we go for forex? Oil is no longer, for almost 3-4 months, NNPC did not remit to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. So I think they are now trying to look at corn, wheat as a way of earning forex at the expense of domestic demand. So I don't know. If you are now channeling almost all your production to earn forex, then your local demand is suffering.
Okay.
You might, because whether or not, there will actually be smuggling at the end of the day. So whatever you are trying to solve, they would also import this corn and so on and spend the same forex, probably through unofficial,
quality.
Exactly, or unofficial means, which will now even leave the computation for GDP and leave government revenue sources. So I don't know, it's a very tough situation. But at the end of the day, I think what should be done is increase production. So when you increase production, you're able to meet domestic demand and as well in the forex, which government is trying to. And so I think it should go beyond just channeling all or most or 60 or 70% to forex. There should be a conscious effort at increasing domestic production. Mechanized farming should be as much as possible encouraged. So I think that's the brain.
We'll come back to this, especially the exportation of maize from the country, because there is a reason for that. Now let's look at the impact of the Russia-Ukraine conflict on global crop production and, of course, food prices. We know that both countries are huge suppliers of grains and other commodities. But what do you think the impact will be globally of this conflict?
The impact has it's already been felt, especially in the Western world, especially in North Africa. Libya, from what the record shows, depends 85% of wheat. So Libya is dependent on Ukraine and Russia.
Wow.
In fact, they are popularly referred to as the bread basket of the world. So
that's
Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
You have Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco. They rely on these two countries for nothing less than 60% of their wheat needs. The entire Europe, in fact, the entire world, it relies on it for about a third of their wheat needs. Then even fish, things like fish. In fact, Ukraine is seen as holding about 25% of the most fertile land in the world. Their soil is called the black soil. Okay. That's why close to the Black Sea. So they are seen as an arable land. So they are the source of most of the grains, corn, even oil, sea oil, which in fact, vegetable oils generally.
Okay.
So fish. There's this mackerel fish that are used in sardines and so on. It's mainly gotten from Russia. So I think
that means that too will go up.
Yeah, of course. Of course, it would. The only reason why for now we have not started noticing, especially in this part of the world, that the war or the invasion is just about 3 weeks old. So most countries still have reserves, strategic reserves, which they are bringing. Exactly, yes. So I think if it continues in the next 2, 3, 4 months, then it's going to be terrible on the global economy. But for now, wheat prices have, you check inflation figures in the Western world. UK, as at the last, as at January before the war, it was about 5.5% inflation. But unofficial records say that it's about 8% now. So by the end of March, official figures for the quarter will come out. And it's been speculated that it's about, to get to about 10%. US is 7.5. It's been speculated that it's about 9% now. So the war has impacted so much on cost of goods. And it's either a direct impact or an indirect impact. Okay. Because, since this has also affected global oil prices, gas prices, so you would have increase in cost of production generally for industries.
Yes.
And, there will even be some shutdowns. You've had companies pulling out of Ukraine, pulling out of Russia. You have BP oil, you have Shell, Exxon, even Coca-Cola recently have pulled out. So this will have effect on, because they were making money, it will have effect.
Yes.
The stock market, the US stock market, the global stock market has taken a hit recently. Even futures market, where you hedge against, you tell somebody, okay, I'm paying for this maize. In the next 10 years, you supply me at $10, so that whatever happens, the investor takes the risk. And so those futures markets has also taken a hit because there's so much uncertainty now. Nobody is ready to enter those sort of agreements with you. So there's high. So when those global oil and gas, it affects the industries that produces these wheat, bread, and so on, because they all use energy. So it has led to a global inflation in prices, cost of production. You know, we're just coming out, the global economy was just coming out of
the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, so it's fragile growth. Almost all economies, US was just planning to take up measures to address inflation as high as it was, cost of production. Pump prices at almost every country has increased. Right now in Ghana, it's between 600 to 800 when you convert it to our naira.
Okay.
Even in UK, it's at an all-time high now. Diesel prices sell for about £1.61. That's the highest.
So the world is having an energy crisis.
Exactly, that's what it is. Even US, that is an oil-producing economy, the average, national average has been $3.50 all the while, but now it's running into about $4.70. And with this recent ban on Russian oil by the United States, we expect it to pump prices to increase high. Even if US have not been a large dependent on Russia, I think 8% of their oil
which is
they
almost
get from
negligible
Russia.
For them.
Exactly, yeah. But even at that, they still contribute. They were the third largest importers or exporters of oil to US at that. So US has been forced to take, I think about 60,000 barrels was released from their strategic reserves just last week. So it has taken a hit on the economy. But they are hitting Russia, but it's also, in fact, the UK Prime Minister alluded to it, it's also hitting the West too. Cost of production, cost of living has increased all around. Fertilizers too.
Yes.
Russia is the highest.
Yes, I was coming to that. As one of the biggest fertilizer companies in the world says they buy considerable amounts of raw materials from Russia, and that's a problem already for them.
Yeah, you know fertilizers
for poor countries.
Exactly. You know, fertilizers are a byproduct. You know, there are different varieties of fertilizer. The most marketable one is a byproduct of gas, oil, and so on. You have the ones
Russia
from
has
in excess. In fact, they are the largest producers, just behind Saudi Arabia. So you have the ones from deposits, which debris, which is not as common. How do you don't have enough debris? I think Germany is the largest users or producers of that from debris, which is just for their local. So fertilizers, which the West developing countries, economies need to grow their crops. So it means that there's a shortage, and there will now be rationing. So instead of you to use enough to get high yield, you probably want to ration it.
So that equals low yield.
Exactly.
At the end of the farming season.
Exactly. Low yield. So it's hits all around, and the developing economies would be worse for it because, especially like Nigeria, we are a commodity exporting economy and an importing economy. So even if it doesn't hit you directly, the fact that it has hit the global economy, those Western world who have had increase in cost of production, high cost of production of their commodities, is going to be transferred to us because they are now having to produce at high cost. So we are also going to import those commodities which they are producing. It will be transferred to us. And our oil, which we should have made some money from because of the mismanagement of the oil sector, it now seems like an increase in oil price is now a penalty for us as an oil producing
increase in
economy.
Oil price, increase in pump price.
Increase in pump price, increase in fiscal deficit, because we are selling our crude at probably it's about $111 now for the Brent oil today as at today.
Which should ordinarily be very good news for Nigeria.
Which should have been. And I remember the last time we were here, I talked about the fact that the country should just put its house in order now. that because oil was going to sell at over $100 this year. But we have failed to do that.
That was even before
the
Russia-Ukraine conflict.
The World Bank made such speculation. So, but I think it has all our mismanagement of it's very pitiable. Sometimes you don't even know where to start from. It has just come to haunt us. Even our primary products like corn, wheat, if we had concentrated on it now, with the fact that there's now almost a global crisis, this is a time when
for us to export, and the markets would have been very right for Nigeria.
Even gas, because we are flaring our gas, because that's the tool that Russia is using against the West now. Because they are the suppliers of, and that's why US has banned, but the West, EU has not found that courage.
How do you do that when you get about 30 to 40% supply from them?
And this is the season now when you have snows falling, so they need it for heating their houses. They need it in Europe to heat their house, so they've not been able to find the courage, and they are just sort of subsidizing the war to Russia. As US said, even US that just relies 8% on oil, said they pay $1 billion every day to
cover
Russia,
up for the deficit.
as payment for that oil, that 8% they get. So you can imagine how much Europe is paying for its gas and its crude. They are just funding the war that they are speaking against or fight. So it almost seems like, but they've not been able to find the guts to do that, and that's because they're highly. So this is the point where Nigeria would have made good money, but we are busy flaring our gas. So it's a very pitiable situation. We sell our crude at probably $100, whatever it is now. We are not even able to meet our production quota. So we are short on production. Then the cost
about 600 barrels per day.
Yeah, because the OPEC quota given to us is about 1.6, 1.7, and we are producing 1.2 million.
1.2, 1.3.
Exactly. So we are selling at that low amount. Then we are buying refined oil. Wow. Because those people who we are buying for, they are sourcing their oil themselves. So you cannot tell them at what price you buy the refined oil. So it even means that the subsidy amount that was budgeted for 3 million, it's even going to increase, because it was not budgeted with this amount of one. It even rose to $130 last week. And there are rumors that with the US ban on Russia oil, if Saudi Arabia does not increase, I know US is trying to lobby them to increase production so that it makes up for this deficit. But if they don't, they have said that Russia is an ally, they can't betray them. So if they don't, there are even reports that it could go as high as $300, $200, which will be a record high. So it means that we are going to, our subsidy provision of 3 trillion might even end up increasing to as much as 6 trillion naira in the budget. So, and that would mean that our fiscal deficit increases. We're already on about 6 trillion, likely to rise. Our fiscal deficit increases. Our debt servicing will also increase.
Because of high interest rates?
Exactly. It would affect our foreign exchange reserves, put pressure on it, which would reduce the reserves, put pressure on our naira exchange.
So it's almost like we're the one who's worst hit by the war.
That's what it means. We are just like every oil importing economy. That's what it means. Just like you talk about Ghana, you talk about Benin Republic who don't have oil. That's just the way we are now, because we have exposed ourselves. We are now coming to reap the consequences of not planning all this while. We are just like an oil importing economy now, just exposed to the vagaries of oil price volatility. If we had a refinery, we really don't have any business with whatever happens. We'll just be profiting, just be smiling to the bank.
And like you said, this would have been an opportunity for Nigeria if we had concentrated more on production for food. Since Ukraine and Russia are busy at war right now, the market needs a filler.
So at this point, this is the time to just make free windfall from everything, from oil, from gas, from wheat,
especially
corn. Exactly, wheat. Yeah, exactly. In the north, in fact, there was a time I heard before the I think 2016, our dependence, our import bill for wheat, I think the highest we ever got to was about 100 billion naira on wheat. But in the last 3 years, in 2019, it was 350. It kept increasing. 2020, 756.
Is that revenue for wheat or money put in for wheat production?
Yeah, money spent, imports of wheat, the value in terms of naira, the valuation of our imports, wheat imports. You know, so it's and this, we have just talked about fuel, but you know, because diesel, we have other deregulated petroleum products which are not, which the subsidy does not cover. It's because of this subsidy that is hitting hard on the budget. So, but like products like diesel, kerosene have increased. Diesel is close to about 600 now at the pumps. This was about 300 before. So that's also hitting us too, because most of the large manufacturing companies in Nigeria, they rely on diesel.
Even the food processing companies.
Yeah, exactly. Bread factories, they don't run their generators with fuel. It's diesel. So that's why we're already having increases in, so it hits us through diesel, kerosene, despite even aviation fuel. These are deregulated. So they are exposed to the international. So if we had refineries, we are refining this at home and we are not exposed to it. Then even also, so there are many sides to it. Even as a dependent economy, we have talked about fiscal deficits, that the subsidy will end up increasing our need to borrow. And, you know, with the fact that the developed economies are in a strain right now, they are also having financial issues too. So it means that we who are going to borrow from creditors, the cost of borrowing will also increase.
Will increase.
Because there is also an uncertainty about them to even give out loans. So if you are going at a higher rate of interest. So our borrowings would increase because of the increase in subsidy payment. Then we are now borrowing at higher interest rates, which will also increase our debt servicing. So that's why I saw the Minister of Petroleum. He said anything above $70, $80 just before the Ukraine war, that it's not favorable to Nigeria, and that's what it is.
Now, but before this time, it was a prayer for oil to hit $100 per barrel. So what has changed?
Yeah, it's you know, then we still had skeletal refinery we still had Port Harcourt, even Warri, they were refining at some level, even if not full capacity. So our reliance was low. That's one. Then two, I think which is the major aspect. I think there's so much corruption in the subsidy system now. Then we're consuming probably 15. I know as of 2015 it was 15 liters or 1,000 liters per day. But now the NNPC says 65,000 liters a day. So smuggling is also now encouraged, because the smugglers are now having a field day now, because you buy at the subsidized price in Nigeria of 165, they will prefer to take it to Benin Republic and Ghana that is now selling at 800 naira per liter. So smuggling, corruption has now become heightened, that has received or has taken a high dimension now. So we are now importing 65,000 liters per day from 20 or 25,000 liters 6 years ago. So that has multiplied the strain. The subsidy payment has increased. So that's the difference. And I don't know if there has been an increase in the number of cars on the road, but I just think that it has to do with corruption in the system. So at some point, I just hope that there will be a rebate in our thinking, so that we don't have to go through this cycle over and over again. But most importantly, our refining capacity has to increase. Modular refineries, we've talked about it increasing. We've talked about the local refineries. Yeah, we are waiting for Dangote refinery here, but in the meantime, I think our refinery capacity has to increase. That's the only way we could be able to benefit from the increase in crude oil price right now. Okay,
let's go back mainly now to food production. Now, report has it that African countries imported agri-products worth $4 billion from Russia alone in 2020. And then for Ukraine, it was 2.9 billion worth of imports in 2020. Now, among the products that were imported, wheat, yes, was more for that of Russia. And also, wheat was involved in the import from Ukraine, but maize had 31% from Ukraine. Now, countries that contributed to the $4 billion revenue for Russia in 2020, we have Nigeria, we have South Africa, we have Egypt, we have Sudan, and some other countries. Now, handling this deficit in grain supply, wheat, and of course maize specifically, Dangote has actually warned Nigeria about the effect of this, saying that in the next 2 to 3 months, prices will soar because those in the food processing chain would not have enough supply. So he was calling for a ban on importation of maize. Do you see that happening?
Because of the fact that, answering the question directly, because of the fact that we are relying from this non-oil sector, which involves agriculture, corn, maize, as we like to call it. So, you know, we are now shifting away from oil as the source of forex, so as I explained before. So the plan is to concentrate more on the non-oil sector as our source of forex, for which maize is one of them, and we are exposed. I think it will be difficult to ban, except the local domestic production demand would suffer if we are to ban.
I'm sorry, he was calling for a ban of exports of maize because we do not have enough coming in now. Exactly. So exporting.
Yeah, I think that's what that's a nice
but would that happen?
Suggestion. I don't know if it will happen because we are at a crossroad now. The economy is lean on forex. We need forex as bad because our debt servicing, that's the new dimension to our forex needs. Now, before, forex needs were just to import commodities, manufactured goods, aeroplanes and so on. But now, debt servicing, it takes a major chunk of our forex. So it's like you're just giving out free money to these creditors, 4 trillion. So we need forex as bad as possible. And oil is no longer bringing that forex because of the subsidy payment.
But so even at the point of needing forex, if we wait against having a shortage of maize, if we have a shortage of maize, that means for companies to produce cereals, they have shortage of raw materials needed. So that means that the price of cereal goes up. And cereals are like food for children, mainly. So weighing these two things, which should take priority at the time? The need for forex and the need to have more raw material for cereal production. Yeah,
it's important to address that, because at the end of the day, if you are not addressing that, there will still be imports some way. Yeah, people will still bring out, whether through official or unofficial means. So I think, in my own opinion, I would have felt that we should meet the local demand first. Yeah, but there's still also the need to balance it with our forex. Yeah, because as I talked about debt servicing, we are also importing, this is almost like wartime situation in Nigeria. We are importing all the Tucano aircrafts, we are importing so much technology. We are talking about ICT. These are all things that we don't produce. But I think that generally, looking at the situation, the fact that African countries are importing, talked about South Africa, Nigeria. So I'm now wondering, what are we exporting? Because we are seeing like a primary economy. Africa generally, a primary product economy, of which wheat, corn are part of it. We should be part of it. You are not manufacturing technological, you are importing technological, manufactured, automobiles and so on, and you also have to be importing.
You're not sufficiently producing primary products.
Exactly, and you're also importing primary products. So where is our comparative advantage? So I think it just has come to show the unseriousness of the African continent, and it's coming to haunt us at this point. It's very difficult to even analyze the situation or lay recommendations for what should be done going forward. But that's
because
the situation
the timing is not best.
It's not.
For recommendations.
It's not. And wheat prices, it has been shown that it's at a 14-year high right now. Wheat, maize is at a 9-year high. So generally, food prices.
Bailey and some other things have already been on the increase before this conflict.
Exactly. That's used for animal feeds too. So
and even some beverage companies use Bailey. Yeah,
exactly. So confectionery, even biscuits, pastas, even your noodles, they are all from flour, you know. So we are in a situation. For Nigeria, the sad part is that these are not overnight things. There's what you call lag period in economics. These are not wheat, and so it's not, you need a full season of production to even rectify the situation. So it's a very hard time. We are just exposed to it's either we now start finding alternatives. US, because of this shutdown on US are our largest importers, or rather exporters of wheat to Nigeria. So it means that they themselves now have so many markets to service now. They are trying to stand by the EU, so they would most likely channel most of their wheat and so on to EU to compensate for whatever shock Russia is doling at them. So it's difficult for us to even now start finding alternatives. So we just have to sit down.
Longer ready in terms of crop production.
Exactly. So we just have to sit down and allow should I say, the consequences we just hope that the war or the invasion does not last so long beyond them, because I don't know if we need to go look at the extreme. There's also the possibility of a world war if there's provocation from NATO. So
that's something most of the world is saying no to.
Yeah.
And even Nigeria is saying God forbid.
Exactly. they are saying so, yes, but it depends on the Kenyan president is trying to put pressure on NATO to put a no-fly zone over Ukraine. And you know that when NATO does that, the Russian president is almost seemingly begging that NATO should provoke him, so that he throws his nuclear weapon.
We hope that doesn't happen.
Because, you now see civilian targets hitting hospitals and so on. And the Ukrainian president is putting pressure on NATO. NATO was trying to bring in some ammunitions through Poland. Russia blew them up, so, and NATO has warned that if Russia continues blowing up, so, it just almost looks like Putin has been put to a tight corner, yes, with all the sanctions. So it's like a wounded lion now. So he would just want to fall back to his nuclear weapons if NATO have to now involve. So it's just a tense situation. And when it happens, there's no part of the world that will be spared. A global recession like we had in 1998, in 2008 would affect the entire economy, especially the developing economies, because we rely on the developed economies for almost all our imports. It's even terrible that we rely on them for primary products.
Yes.
We are not talking about
as much as raw ingredients.
Exactly. Our military, we have military alignments and bilateral agreement with Russia, especially. Even this Ajaokuta steel complex, we had an agreement with Russia in December last year to come and help us resuscitate it, because they were the original constructors of the steel complex in 1979. So, and it's just general copper, aluminium, nickel, zinc. These are large. Russia is a high producer of most of these things, and it's needed in the manufacturing of cars. So it would also affect prices of cars.
So in a lot of ways, it is affecting world economies.
Yeah, it is.
But the big shock, or the biggest shock, is that of food.
Yeah.
Food prices
because
for the African continent.
Exactly. It's basic. And the African continent is exposed because we are, we don't, it's not something that can change overnight.
You cannot just exactly. For it. Now, it was expected that cereal crops will be ready for harvest. Already expected that cereal crops will be ready for harvest in June this year. But whether or not the farmers in Ukraine can invest it and make it available at the market is a different question, given the complex situation in Ukraine right now.
Yeah. Almost
and if all of that goes to waste, that further reduces the supply of grains to the world.
Almost everybody has been conscripted to fight now. You have parliamentarians, even bankers, carrying up guns. So there's no. Then also the seaport has been closed.
Wow.
The Black Sea, which is seen like the global.
Able, assuming conflict extends to that, because there's no time.
There's no shipment. Vessels
there's no short duration for the crisis in Ukraine.
Yeah, vessels are not moving. The ports have been closed. Wow. The Black Sea, which is seen like the global hub for food, is closed down. Russia has not allowed shipments, vessels to move. So it's a crisis situation, sort of. Just as I said, because of reserves for most countries, it hasn't hit as much. But I think
reserves for most countries. Do we have reserves in Nigeria?
If we had reserves, I don't think we would be even having we would be importing. I don't know how much
Dangote would have been saying in the next 2 to 3 months. Yeah. It hits hard.
I don't know how much reserves we have. I know Dangote sold his flour mill, I think last year or last 2 years. So I don't know. We are completely exposed to the Western world at this point.
Wow.
And that has been as a result of mismanagement, misplanning. We haven't paid attention to the things that we're supposed to pay attention to. Even the students who were supposed to evacuate, now they are all scattered all over Poland, Kazakhstan. So how do you...
They say better late than never. Yeah. Is there hope in sight for us as far as food production and control of crop production and control of food prices are concerned, even with all of this happening?
Yeah, in the short term, it's very little hope, except we now start looking for alternative sources to import these products from. But I think that's even difficult to see, because there's a competition outside there. So there's
prices
little hope.
may just be so high beyond our reach.
There's little hope. We just resort to cassava flour and so on.
The very staple
products that we have. Which cannot also be done overnight too.
Well, bread is a staple as well. And we have more time for this, but we've run out of time. Thank you very much, Dr. Zazeyiwa, for coming on the show and making this a very scintillating discussion. Now, how did the world not see, especially Africa and Nigeria, that Russia and Ukraine were very important as far as food production is concerned. It's sad. I do hope that we're able to come up with something. Like I said earlier, bread is staple, but maybe you and I may just have to cut down on that if the conflict in Ukraine and Russia continues. I am Blessing Aichi. Have yourself a great weekend. While we hope that this will blow over.